Hey friend, in today's watercolor tutorial, I'm going to be teaching how to paint this watercolor winter landscape. Without further ado, let's get painting. For today's tutorial, I'm just going to be using two colors, just black and Payne's gray. The brushes I'm using are size 6 and size 2 round brush by Princeton brand. I'll also be using a sponge brush, and the paper I've taped down here is a size 5 by 7 inches. First thing to get started is I'm just going to take my size 2 brush and just barely tap on my black color just to get a nice pale gray sketch tone going. And we are going to have our snow start just about 3 inches down. I'm just going to do a little mark right here and then just use some water just to carry this sketch a little bit. And just below will be the snow. And so I want kind of an uneven snowbank. So I'm just doing a very pale sketch because I don't want my snow to be black, but you could just see there's a little bit of subtle organic curvature there. Then from here, I'm just going to carry on with the same thing, just some washed out black. And I want to sketch out our river or our stream. And it's going to have kind of an S curve to it. I'm starting about 1 centimeter below, off towards the left. So here's our mark of where we're starting. Then from here, I'm just going to curve off towards the right, curve off towards the left. And then from here, it's going to just kind of go again towards the right slightly. And then as we sketch the other side of our stream, it's going to start quite narrow towards the top and then gradually widen. And then it's going to elongate all the way towards the edge of the right side of the page here. All right, next I'm just going to take my sponge brush and tap it in some water. And I just want an even saturation of water just above the sketch line of the snow. We're going to be doing some wet and wet technique here using both Payne's gray and our black. Okay. From here, I want to start using our size 6 brush this time with a wash of Payne's gray. This is one of my favorite colors with Winsor & Newton. It's just a nice, beautiful blue. And I'm just starting on this left side here, going all the way to the top, but then gradually increasing the width of the blue towards the bottom. So I'm leaving some areas of white to show through. I'm going to do just a little bit more. Oops, I grabbed some black. That's okay. I'm going to get a little bit more Payne's gray and just kind of layer that in this left corner and a little bit towards the top again. Just gradually kind of buff it out into the water. Just doing another layer here. Okay, and then I'm gonna gradually add some towards the bottom here. Again, kind of following that sketch line of the snow. And then from here, I'm going to do the same thing on the right side. Going all the way to the right corner. I'm just going to take some water on my brush and just kind of buff out the transition between the blue and the white. All right, point, I'm gonna grab just a touch more Payne's Gray just to darken this area a bit. Payne's Gray, as you could see, can be very potent, so a little goes a long way. Once your brush gets your paint cake wet, it really becomes very concentrated. Love this. We have our light source and just some shading and depth on the bottom left and right corners, going up towards the top corners a little bit as well. And then from here, I am going to mix some black with some Payne's Gray. So kind of a cooler tone of a black. Okay. Then from here, I just want to switch gears to our size 2 brush. We may go back to our size 6, but starting out a little small, just to be on the safe side. I now want to gradually incorporate some wet and wet trees. So I'm going to start with the left side and be sure that your paper isn't super duper wet at this point. We still want it to have an even saturation of moisture on the page, but sometimes when it's really wet, when we add the trees might overpower and bloom, right? So you can kind of gauge that it's not too wet at this point. I believe our page is ready to add some muted trees without it just over blooming. So I'm starting with a straight line and then curving it out towards the left. Then from here, I'll do another one curving out towards the right and left again. I really like to use the analogy with the trees that the trees are like Y letters with lots of arms. So up towards the top, I'm gonna do a few thinner branches kind of coming off, just like so. Kind of building our tree canopy here. And then I would love to do another one here, kind of layering it. And again, it's nice and soft and muted because of the water. And I'm just kind of layering these angled arms, or branches, not arms, but you know what I mean. And then I want to do just a few dainty branches that are nice and delicate, that have some texture and different angles. Just like so. And again, the trunk should be the widest part of the tree, right? So if needed, you can go back in and widen the trunk if some of your branches got a little thick. Then from here, I want to do a couple on this side. I'll do maybe a small one off in the distance, using really light pressure with my brush. Maybe do that kind of canopy situation where the branches kind of curve inward. And again, I'm just playing with the different angles. Don't overthink it too much. As long as you have some angled trees with different perspectives or directions for the branches, that is the main goal. I'm just going to thicken up this trunk and main branch here a little bit. Maybe there's a tinier one off in the distance. I'll do another smaller one off towards the left here. And then I'll do one or two more muted ones off towards the right. And then just one more off in this gap. Maybe there's a larger gap here. I'm going to paint this one closer to the edge. Okay, and then last but not least, I may just paint a super tiny one over here to the left, just wanting to get some more perspective. And again, just painting a few dainty branches, different directions, and layering just like that. While our wet and wet trees dry overhead, I want to get started on our stream. So I'm going to take my size 6 brush and just fill this stream with water here. All right, and then from there, I want to take just straight Payne's gray, and I'm going to start towards the top here. And gradually paint the curve of the inside of the sketch. And as we get towards the bottom of the stream here, it's going to fade into a really dusty tone for the Payne's gray. So it kind of has a dark to light quality to it. And around the edges, I'm going to take the blend that we had of the Payne's gray mixed with the black. And around the edges, I just want to create kind of some rough texture using the tip of my size 6 brush. I just want to kind of buff that out a little bit too, just dragging my brush out. And then I'm going to do the same thing on the other edges just to create kind of an irregular texture so that way the sketch line isn't perfectly smooth. We want some ridges happening here. I'm just allowing this darker tone to kind of bleed out, just kind of gradually and bloom. I'm going to take a wet brush and just smooth out this transition just a little bit. Then taking that same black and Payne's gray blend, I'm going to add some in this area down below, using the tip of my brush to add some rough texture along the edge. And then I'm just going to take a damp size 6 brush and just kind of buff that out a little bit with some clean water. And I'll just do a little bit on this edge as well, just a slight amount. Okay, and then from here, I'm gonna take some watered down Payne's Gray. And with that, I want to do just a few horizontal streaks using the tip of my size 6 brush, just to give our stream here a little bit of texture, leaving some gaps in between these horizontal strokes, just like that. And then I'm going to take our blend of the Payne's Gray and Black and just paint a few trees here, kind of mimicking what we see over here. Some branches as well, just letting it softly bleed out. I'm gonna add just a few more smaller stripes as well, but just to give the imitation of a reflection that's just very soft and subtle. It's not perfectly mirroring. Okay, and then I'm just gonna let that settle and dry. And for our next step, we're gonna use just black and we're gonna water it down quite a bit. And using the plain black, I want to get kind of like a loose dry brush texture to get some detail into our snow. And I'm gonna start with my size 6 brush and just drag the side of my brush, the belly of the brush, with the toned down, watered down black, just to get this nice texture. And leaving the snow completely white using the back of the paper would not be realistic because there is some shading and depth to the snow depending on how the light hits it. If you get too dark of areas like that's probably too dark, you could just get some water and just kind of buff it out with some pressure with your brush. And again, I'm just simply adding a little bit of this texture throughout. I'm gonna add some just along the edges here of the stream. I'll do the same thing on the edge of this side of the stream as well. And again, it's just super loose and organic. For a while when I was experimenting with watercolor in the beginning stages of painting, doing things loose just was so tricky to me. I was an acrylic painter for a few years and I really liked realism for a time, did portraiture, architecture, buildings, or paintings with acrylic. And so watercolor was so different because you kind of are going for a looser interpretation a lot of the time. And so, yeah, if you're in that funky place, it's okay. Don't overthink it too much. Just let your intuitive, creative flow state just kind of take over. So I'm working my way up towards the top border of the snowbank as well. Okay, and then from here, I want to let our snowbank areas just dry. We may add a little bit more snow texture, but I'm just gonna let this set, and then we come back, we're gonna add some wet into dry trees that are really gonna make the landscape pop. All right, now that our artworks are dry, I am going to take my size 2 brush to get started on a few trees that are more in the forefront. So I'm using that blend of the black and the Payne's gray combined. These trees are going to be much darker compared to the ones that are kind of more muted. So I'm going to start off towards the left to just do a couple here, starting about a centimeter below, just below the snow line here. And again, I'm starting with a slightly thick trunk, and for the trunk base, I like to have mine usually a little bit crooked, not like perfectly cut off straight. And then from here, I want to paint some branches, so I'm going to curve off towards the left, just trying to kind of smooth out my trunk line here. There we go. And then I want to elongate a few branches that kind of curve off and slightly inward. Do another one that's kind of going towards the top here. Then I'm going to do another branch that's stemming off of that one. Again, kind of mimicking the Y-shaped technique I talk about, where you can kind of build off some of the shapes mimicking some Y letters in your head. That kind of helps form it a little bit. Then from here, I just want to do some really dainty, delicate branches, just to give a little bit more texture to the tree. Okay, awesome. And then from there, I'm gonna do a smaller tree that's maybe just slightly barely higher up than the previous one. Okay, and then from there, I want to do a branch curving off towards the right, maybe another one that goes towards the left here. And again, I'm just gonna smooth out this edge of the trunk a bit. Okay, and then I want to do maybe 3 on this side. I'm just going to mix up a little bit more Payne's gray with the black. Okay, so for this one, I'll start with the tree just right around here. I'm going to make the base a little bit wider, and again, slightly angled. then I want to have a branch go off towards the right. And then another one slightly more angled higher towards the left. And then I'll do one that slightly curves a bit towards the top here. Then from here, I'm just going to add some more branches coming off at different angles. Making sure that these branches are darker compared to the ones that we painted previously. All right, and then from here, I just want to do a few more detailed, dainty branches. Okay, I'm gonna mix up some more of my Payne's gray and black blend and then do another tree here. Maybe this one is just a little bit small, more farther away in the background. Okay, and then I'm going to do one more tree off towards the right. Slightly angled towards the bottom. And then from there, I'm gonna just extend this trunk a little bit and then add a few branches, just overlapping. Okay, I love the perspective that we have now with the trees that are more closer to the viewer. And then from here, I just want to take my size 2 brush and do that wash of black So very light black, and do just a little bit of shading of this muted gray using the dry brush technique we did previously. Just want to shade below the trees here slightly. Then I'm going to add just a little bit of that texture on the snowbank as well. Leaving some pops of white. And then from here, I just want to add that dry brush texture just below the trees. Here you can just incorporate any more dry brush texture and detail around the stream just to make it pop. I'm just adding a little bit of texture along the edges. Okay, and then from here, I want to add, using just plain black, I am going to add a few like bushes that have lost their leaves. So similar to the branches, I do a bunch of kind of whimsical, irregular lines that are really jagged. And then using really light pressure, I add just a few more branches in different directions, kind of utilizing the Y letter at different strange angles, just nice and loose and organic. Okay, so there's one kind of bush area there. And then I just want to add one really small one, nice and dainty, off towards the base of this tree. Just a few angled loose lines here. Nothing too crazy. Do the same thing off in this area, using really light pressure with my brush. And then maybe just a taller one over here. Maybe it's tucked behind this tree a bit. And then I'll do one last one just around the shore of the river or the stream. Okay, and that concludes our painting. Thank you so much for joining me for today's watercolor winter season landscape painting. I hope you enjoyed painting this one just as much as I did, and be sure to subscribe to my channel so you don't miss any further watercolor tutorials.